Hey everyone, and welcome to Míra Developer by Mira World. If you're getting into the Go programming language, one of the absolute best things you can learn is how to build APIs. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a REST API from scratch. This is a tool developers build every single day, and we're going to do it using nothing but Go's built-in standard library.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to cover the basics. What even is a REST API and why should you care? Then we're diving straight into the code. We'll spin up our very first Go server, we'll teach it how to say hello with something called an endpoint, and then we'll make it actually useful by serving up some real structured data with JSON. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a quick recap and a little challenge for you to really make sure these new skills stick.
All right, let's start at the beginning. What in the world is a REST API? You hear this term thrown around all the time in tech, and for good reason. It's kind of like the invisible engine that powers pretty much the entire modern web.
So, in simple terms, a REST API is just a standardized way for different apps to talk to each other. Think about the weather app on your phone. That app doesn't magically know the forecast, it needs to ask a big weather server for the latest data. Well, the API is the messenger that lets your app talk to that server using a language they both understand, HTTP. It's the set of rules for that conversation. And the really cool thing is, this whole conversation usually boils down to 4 simple actions. You've got GET for reading data, POST for creating new data, PUT for updating existing data, and DELETE for, well, deleting it. You might hear this called CRUD, create, read, update, delete. And believe it or not, these 4 operations are the foundation for almost every single app you use, from scrolling social media to your online banking app.
Okay, that's enough theory. Let's get our hands dirty and actually write some code. It's time to build a foundation for our API by creating our very first Go server. And trust me, it's way simpler than it sounds.
Everything starts with just one file. We'll call it main.go. Inside, we'll do the usual setup, declare our package, import the net/HTTP library, and create our main function. But the real magic, the line that does all the heavy lifting, is this one right here, http.listenOnServe. This single line tells Go, hey, I want you to start up a web server and just listen for anyone trying to talk to us on port 8080. You can think of a port like a specific door on your computer that we're opening up just for our application. So our server is now listening, but it doesn't know what to do if someone actually shows up at the door. So we need to teach it how to respond. To do that, we're going to create our very first endpoint, which is just a fancy word for a specific URL that our API knows how to handle. This is basically a 2-step process. First, we write a function. Let's call it home. This function is going to be our handler. Its only job is to take an incoming request and write a response back. Think of this function like a friendly receptionist. Then, the second step is to tell our server about our receptionist. We use http.handle function to say, hey server, anytime someone comes to our main front door, which is the /path, I want you to send them over to our home function to be handled.
And boom, this is the result. If you run your code right now and go to localhost 8080 in your web browser, this is exactly what you'll see. You've just created a live working API endpoint. Seriously, congratulations, that's a huge first step.
Okay, so sending a plain text message is cool and all, but real-world APIs don't just say hello. They speak the universal language of data, and that language is JSON. So let's level up our API to serve some properly structured data that any other application can easily read and understand.
Now, before we can just start sending data out into the world, we need a plan. We need to define the shape of our data. And in Go, the perfect tool for that job is a struct. Just think of it like a blueprint. We're about to draw up a blueprint for what a user looks like in our system.
You'll see the process is almost identical to what we just did. First, we define our user struct. That's our blueprint, right? We'll say a user has a name and an age. Next, we write a new handler function. Let's call it getUser. Inside this one, we'll create a new user and then use Go's built-in tools to convert or encode that user into JSON. And finally, just like before, we register this new handler, but this time to the user path.
And there you have it. If you run the code now and go to localhost 8080/user, you won't get a simple text message anymore. You'll get this perfectly formatted JSON object. This is it. You have officially built a true data-driven API that can talk to other applications. This is awesome.
Wow, we have covered a ton of ground in a really short amount of time. So let's just take a quick second to recap everything you've accomplished, and then I'll give you a little challenge to help lock in all these new skills.
All right, now it's your turn to take the wheel. Using everything we just went over, can you create a brand new endpoint at a /products path? The little twist here is to see if you can make it return a list of products, so an array, as JSON. Give it a shot. Seriously, the best way to make this stuff stick is to try it yourself.
Let's just pause for a second and appreciate what you've actually learned today. You started from scratch, and now you know what REST APIs actually are. You know how to spin up a web server in Go, you know how to create different endpoints to handle requests, and, most importantly, you know how to send back useful, structured JSON data.
And I really want this to sink in. What you've learned here today, this isn't just some neat party trick. These are the absolute, rock-solid, foundational building blocks of all modern back-end development. You've just taken a massive leap forward in your programming journey.
So, if you found this helpful and you're excited to build even more cool stuff, let us know by hitting that like button. I would love to see what you want to build next, so drop your ideas in the comments below. And of course, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on our future projects. Thanks so much for building with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.